and we were live community events. Of course, coronavirus hit us, so we moved into virtual events, which is kind of a blessing in disguise because now we can run as many as we want a week. We can reach people from every corner of the world, every hour of the day. You can bring all your friends rather than just maybe having a meetup in New York City. You're only limited to the people in New York City. So this is actually a really great opportunity that we've gotten to go online and made all of these events virtual now. A few things to keep in mind. You can turn your camera on. Like I said, we love seeing your face. You'll be muted for the duration of the presentation, but we will have a Q&A afterwards. So please drop your question in the chat, starting with question, and Chantel and I will get to it after the prezo. Like I said, use that chat to drop in your stories, your tips, your advice, say hello, connect with others. And we do have replays available for Patreon members. I'll explain a little bit on the next slide. Like I said, we're here to learn, satiate your wanderlust, have a ton of fun, connect. That's the biggest thing, networking here, love it. And Chantel and all the speakers are doing this out of the kindness of their heart and the knowledge and the passion that they just want to drop on us. So for that, we are incredibly grateful. Like I said, we do have a Patreon community. It's this amazing exclusive community where you can get more out of your membership. So if you're finding value in these free events that we're hosting, just know that on the Patreon community, you can get all the TNN replays. You can get your friends to sign up. You guys can have input for the content that comes out on the blog and with Nomadic Matt, live Q&As, free signed books, free guides, never before seen content, photos, access to an exclusive Facebook group. So just scan the QR code and a link will pop up where you can get more info. So Chantel, I'm so excited to have you here.
Yes, I'm so excited. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can get this presentation up. Let me go ahead and pull that up for you guys. Okay, well, first off, everybody, welcome. While this loads, hold on. Getting ahead of ourselves. Okay, welcome. Like I said, my name is Chantel Loura, and I am the creator behind the travel blog Voyaging Vagabond. And today we're going to do a really fun presentation. We're going to go on a little virtual trip, and we are going to discover a bit of Portugal beyond Lisbon and Algarve. So I often find that when people do come to Portugal, they typically just stick to Lisbon and Algarve, and there's so many amazing places that are kind of going under the radar and are super underrated. So I just wanted to highlight a few of those spots so that, you know, after all of this COVID mess happens, you know, and we do begin to travel again, you can add some really incredible places to your list. So let's get right into this. This is just a little map here so you guys can get an idea of where we're going during this presentation. And this presentation will be available after this particular event. And you can go ahead and give your email and you'll get an email with this so you can go through it on your own at home. So now that we have technical stuff, let's get into intros. So like I said, my name is Chantel. I am the plus size queer creator behind the travel blog Voyaging Vagabond. And typically, when it is not COVID time, I have a 43-liter backpack that I put on my back, and I am off hopping the globe, sprinkling body positivity and travel tips like confetti everywhere I go. And the reason I ended up in Portugal is because both of my parents are Portuguese immigrants. And so I have been coming to Portugal since I was a kid, and it's always held a really special place in my heart. And so after 4 long-term visits, I finally made the decision to pack up all of my belongings and move here December of last year. So it's been a year now that I've been here, and I absolutely love it. I'm really just enjoying every second of being out here. It's an incredible country, and I'm so excited to share some spots with you guys. And also, if you want to find me on social, all of my tags are here. These are also hyperlinks. So if you do have the presentation at home, you can click right on and it'll take you right to my page. All right, guys, so let's get right into this. So the first thing I wanted to include is some helpful Portuguese phrases for you to learn. So the thing with Portuguese people is that if you want to build a connection, or if you want to be treated like a local, using any of these phrases is your one-way ticket to do so. So you have your first three introductions based off of the time of day. So we have bon dia, which is good morning, and then you have boa tarde, which is good afternoon, and then you also have boa noite, which is good night. And you would use this phrase anytime you say you walk into a restaurant, you walk into a shop. It would just be like, hola, bom dia, hola, boa tarde. It's also kind of like a Portuguese aloha, in the sense that it also works as like a goodbye greeting. So you would, like, if you're leaving a store, you'd be like, okay, bom dia, like as like a goodbye. So those are always like, if you're introducing yourself to somebody, use those phrases. They're really easy to incorporate, and it really does change people's entire demeanor. And then, you know, because as travelers, we want to be polite when we're traveling. Of course, please and thank you is extremely important. It's super easy here. Please is por favor. If you don't want it to be super formal like that, you can do faz favor, which also works. And then thank you is obrigada if you're a woman, or obrigado if you're a man. So please, if you're coming, use your please and thank yous. It's really appreciated out here. And then the last phrase that I have is this phrase here in the middle, which is não faz mal, which is kind of, so I wanted to include it because you really use it all the time. And it's kind of like a, don't worry about it. Like, it's all right. Like, if someone bumps into you and they apologize, you can say, oh, não faz mal, like, it's no big deal. Don't sweat it. So it's a really great, all of these are just really great phrases to have in your back pocket if you are coming to visit. And so now that we have helpful phrases, let's get to the important stuff. So when it comes to eating, it is such a huge part of Portuguese culture. So much of our culture is based off of preparing fresh meals and sitting with friends and family around a table with a bottle of wine and really enjoying good food. It really is such a massive part of our culture. And so when you're in Portugal, I can assure you that you will be doing a lot of eating. And the beautiful thing is that since people do take such pride in the meals that they're creating, they really do go above and beyond. One, to make sure that everything's super fresh, super local. Everything typically comes from the region, which is incredible. And two, you're almost bound to have a good meal no matter where you end up. So whether it's just a small little bakery on the corner, or a little cafe you're passing, or this hole in the wall restaurant that you want to try out, you're almost guaranteed to have a fantastic meal. And so what I wanted to do is go ahead and include some different plates that you might see on a menu that you can try. So the first here is francesinha. So francesinha is like Portuguese famous sandwich. It's like Portuguese Reuben, in the sense that it's super popular. It's known regionally in the north as originating there. And what it is, it's two pieces of bread, and then stacked inside of that bread is linguiça, steak, ham, and sausage. So it's just like meat on meat on meat on meat. And then you have a piece of bread covering it. And then they cover it in melted cheese. And then they cover it with an egg. And then they cover it with a tomato beer sauce. So it's a super hearty meal. Can absolutely be shared with two people, but it's just one of those things, like if you're in the area, you have to try it, and people love it. It's a little too heavy for me, if we're speaking honestly, but again, like, I can't recommend it enough to say you've at least tried it. And then, excuse me, getting ahead of myself. And then I also have sardinhas asadas, which is grilled sardines, also a staple in Portuguese culture. You can find sardinhas all the time here. Cooked over a fire in the summertime with friends is super common. Served during holidays, also very common. And so if you do get the chance to try them, absolutely give them a try. Another regional favorite, I'm sorry, another national favorite is bacalhau, which is codfish. And they quite possibly find a way to put codfish on everything here. It's served a bunch of different ways, whether it be like a little pastel, which is like kind of like a croquette, or it's served with potatoes. Most meals here are served with potatoes because Portuguese people love carbs. Or it's tossed with rice. There's tons of different ways to have it, and I highly recommend you try them all. So then getting into more food, my absolute favorite, I have a sweet tooth and I have been indulging in all of the Portuguese sweets out here. But one of my favorites is the original sweet, and that is pastéis de nata. So if you've been to Portugal, you've probably eaten these. If you haven't been to Portugal, you need to come and eat a million of them because they are these delicious, fluffy egg custard treats. And they have a light, flaky crust, and they're super inexpensive. And a pastel de nata with a coffee in the morning, that's like standard Portuguese go-to breakfast. And so now we're going to get out of sweets and go back into seafood a little bit. So I have here polvo. So polvo is a super traditional meal. It's octopus, and again served in a ton of different ways, over potatoes in a stew. However they think that they can put octopus in a meal, they'll find a way. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is chouriço assado. So chouriço is a very traditional Portuguese sausage, and here they have a bunch of different kinds depending on where you are. The flavors vary based off of how it's produced or where it's produced. There's a lot of technicalities about it, but chouriço assado is a piece of chouriço that's brought out to you in a flaming terracotta bowl, and it's cooked right at the table. It's incredible. My personal favorite is with some cheese and warm bread. You cannot go wrong at all. So now that we have how to be polite and what we should eat while we're visiting, let's get into some of these places that we can go to. So the first place that I wanted to talk about is Sesiembra. So Sesiembra is a 35-minute car ride from Lisbon, which means that a lot of people will flock there in the summer because it is so easy to get to from the city. And in the summertime, I mean, Portuguese people will just find any reason to be at the beach, any chance they can get. It's a beautiful way to be. And this particular region is super popular because it has these crystal clear blue waters along these dramatic coastlines. And it really creates this picturesque view no matter where you are. And for that, it almost reminds me of pictures you would see from Greek, like totally has a Mediterranean feel to it. And it's just an excellent spot if you really want to go to a beautiful Portuguese beach. Now, you'll see in these presentations that I'm gonna be including insider tips. So these insider tips are little tips and tricks that I have gathered based from my own personal experience, usually my own mistakes. And so this particular tip is you can avoid hiking down the steep cliffs to get to the beaches. So the first time I went to Sesiembra, I didn't know that you had to hike to the beach, which is why I wore a sundress and sandals. Terrible decision. I don't know what I was thinking, but I certainly learned my lesson when I was 30 minutes into a cliffside hike down to this beach. So just keep in mind, if you are going to go to the beaches, it is a really intense hike, but you can avoid that. Even if it's for like accessibility reasons, there is a boat at the marina that takes you there and back. It's €5 each way. I'm not entirely sure if it's cheaper if you buy a round ticket. Again, I didn't know that there was a boat option, and had I known, I certainly would have done the round trip. But I do recommend taking the boat at least one way, whether it be in or out, maybe out, so you won't have to go uphill. because the views are just incredible. Like it's really just such a dramatic coastline, and you have these large rock formations jutting out into the ocean, and to just see it from a boat is just really special. So if you do go to Sisiembra, keep that insider tip in mind. And then, excuse me. So then we're also going to talk about another little coastside area, coastside town called Ericeira. So Ericeira has always been a really fantastic summertime beach destination for Portuguese people. But the interesting thing about Ericeira is that more so in the recent years, there's been a massive influx of young travelers who are coming to Ericeira. And these young travelers are really into surf and skate culture. Surfing is becoming a huge deal in Portugal. It's becoming a really big surf destination. And Ericeira really is one of the top places where you're really starting to see that transformation. So in the set, like all of the surf and skate really is creating a completely different vibe for this particular city. So for instance, like the Ubers come with surfboard racks now, which I had never seen. And then if you want to listen to live music, there's concerts held weekly at the skate shop. And you'll go and people are in giant skate ramps, and like everyone's doing their thing, just enjoying themselves outside. And then a lot of the conversations you're going to have end up being about different surfing spots. So it really has transformed this area into like a hub where people who are interested in those sports and that culture can kind of, find a place in Portugal. So now we are going to move to a place that is very near and dear to my heart. Peniche. So the reason I speak so fondly about Peniche is because the year that I've been here, I've spent 6 months out of that year in Peniche. I first moved to Peniche when I first came to Portugal for a few months. And then when COVID broke out in Portugal, I actually quarantined in Peniche for 3 months as well. And so it really, really does just hold a special place in my heart. So this one's got a lot of information on it because there's so much that I wanted to say and I had to condense it. But let's start off with what I have here. So Peniche oftentimes has the nickname amongst Portuguese people as being known as the end of the world because it's a small fishing village nestled on a peninsula that just out from the coast of Portugal, and it's mostly surrounded by water. And so it really, like if you're looking at the map, it looks like what they consider to be the end of the world. And most of the people that do live in Peniche are locals who work in the fishing industries. The fishing industry and just fishing in itself is such a huge part of the nature of Peniche, and like so many people have ties to the fishing industry. So many people have, not only are they ties, but they're like generational ties, like fathers and grandfathers and great grandfathers have been in this industry, and all of these techniques are just passed down. So it's really special, and it really makes to have a really authentic Portuguese culture. And then 2, you can always find fresh seafood no matter where you go. And the other interesting thing about Peniche is that it also played a really big part in terms of Portugal's political revolution. So quick history Portuguese lesson. Until 1974, Portugal was ruled under a fascist dictatorship. Part of the reason why my parents left was because of that fascist dictatorship. And in 1974, a coup happened and they overthrew the fascist government. And here, this yellow bridge you see here, that's actually the entrance to the Peniche Fortress where political prisoners were kept during the dictatorship. And so part of that coup was freeing those political prisoners. And once those prisoners were freed from this fortress here, then that was kind of one of the moving parts of the 1974 Carnation Revolution. And before we get into this insider tip, I do kind of want to give Like a pro tip, oh, just ignore that notification. I do want to give kind of a pro tip and say that Peniche kind of has this rough exterior. It's like I said, it's very industrial and it's very gray. And when people typically come, they just stay to one area. They'll just go to the beach and it's beautiful there. But Peniche has so much to offer that's often overlooked or just bypassed completely. You could spend 3 days in Peniche and just hop along the coast and you can see so many different things. This here in particular is my personal favorite place in Peniche. So here you have an archipelago with a bunch of small islands that are connected by hiking trails and bridges. And you can go through, it's one of the most beautiful places I've seen in the world, easily one of the most beautiful places in Portugal. And every single time I go, there's nobody there. Because like I said, Peniche is often overlooked. So if you do go, just, take the time to maybe go somewhere outside of just the beaches. There's caves that you can explore that are all along the coast. And just take the time to see that because it really is such a beautiful place. And then my insider tip, I struggled with this one because there were so many different insider tips I wanted to give, but I figured this one was the most important. So my insider tip for Peniche is that if you want a proper Portuguese style meal, then you have to go to this family run restaurant called São Pedro. And I've included the name here on the slide. Again, if you leave your email, we'll go ahead and send you this slideshow as well. So you'll have all of this information. But what I personally like about this restaurant, São Pedro, is so you'll walk in and the daughter will be cooking your meal. The wife will be taking your order, and then the husband will be bringing fresh fish heads to you to show you how fresh the fish is. And then we'll also be bringing you different different kinds of seafood to show you what they have for that day. And so rather than having a menu, he's just bringing you different kinds of fish and saying, okay, we have this kind of fish, this kind of fish, this kind of fish, and he lets you choose. And it's really special. Portuguese hospitality is such a fantastic thing. And, this is such a great example of that because not only will this family cook you an incredible meal, but they'll also give you so many different things that you didn't order because they just want to share with you. The people here are just naturally kind and naturally giving and just want to provide. So one, you'll be so full by the time that you leave. And two, the whole family will be sitting with you with glasses of wine as they recount stories from the old days. So it really Portuguese, I can't stress it enough. Portuguese hospitality is such a fantastic thing to experience. And this is a great way for you to do that if you are in the area. I really, it's such a fantastic place. And if you're looking to support local business, this is a great way to do so. So next we're hopping into Berlingas. So Berlingas can actually be reached by a ferry from Peniche. It is a nature lover's dream. Okay, so you go and there's no facilities whatsoever. I think there's one cafe and there's 10 houses on the island, and that's where the fishermen who live year round live. So there's really nothing there. To the left here, you'll see the Fort de São João Batista. And that's actually a working hotel now, but again, has barely any facilities. You have to bring your own food. So it's really, if you're looking for a 5-star experience, this is not the place to do that. But if you're looking for really captivating Portuguese nature, then you absolutely have to come. It's a nature lover's dreams. There's so many hiking trails. There's a ton of opportunities to bird watch. You can go cave exploring. There's small boats that you can hop on right by the dock when you come in. And you can also go scuba diving. It's becoming a huge diving location. A lot of universities in the area that focus on marine biology will have their students come out and dive here. So if you are looking for kind of some outdoor activities and you're looking to kind of be away from the cities and you just need a little bit of I can't say peace and quiet because there's so many seagulls there that it's never quiet. But if you're looking for some serenity and a moment to kind of go explore, then this is a great area to do so. And then a fun little fact about this fortress that I wanted to mention is that it used to be a monastery in the 1500s. It was created by the monks to help shipwreck sailors because, like I said, the seas are so rough sometimes in the Atlantic that a lot of times there would be boats capsizing, and these monks would come and rescue these men. However, the monastery was deserted after frequent pirate attacks. So not only frequent pirate attacks, but also a plague that ravished the entire island. And so when I was here, I knew that fun fact from my family telling me, and I was imagining the pirates like scaling over these walls and like what exactly that could have looked like. And I'm just a history nerd, so to see something like that and be able to kind of like imagine what that was like, it's almost like a movie, and it's really special. And then this bridge here too, you can actually walk across, like you can go right into this fortress here. And so it's really fun, and it's a really great view, and it's just such a beautiful place. I can't stress it. Well, actually, I should say this. So the whole reason I moved to Peniche is because I saw a picture very similar to this. And I was like, this is the most incredible place I've ever seen. This looks so beautiful. I want to go to Peniche and go there. And so I got to Peniche and I showed a picture to some people and I said, okay, so where is this? How do I get there? And they laughed in my face, which brings us to our next insider tip, which is another moment of learning from my experiences. The ferry only runs from late April to early October. And so like even for this year in particular, because of COVID, the ferry only ran from June to early October this year. And so I came to Peniche in end of December. And so when I told people I wanted to go here, they were like, how are you going to get there? Swim? Because the ferry wasn't running for another 4 months. But luckily I did stay in Portugal long term, so I was able to go and see it. And it really is captivating. And so if you are a nature lover and you want to get some hiking in while you're here, some scuba diving, definitely come out to Berlingas. So now we're going to go inland. I know we've been kind of hugging the coast a little bit because the Portuguese coastline does have so much to offer, but I do want to go inland a little bit just to talk about a really fantastic spot called Óbidos. So Óbidos is kind of a touristy area. A lot of day tours will stop there because once you're within the castle walls, you really do look like you're in a fairy tale. It honestly looks like a Disney movie. You'll see these beautiful whitewashed buildings with colorful trim and just gorgeous flowers growing down the walls of them. And the reason that it's so beautiful, and even though it is a little bit touristy, it's certainly worth a visit, is because Óbidos became home to Portugal's queen after Alfonso II gifted it to his wife in the 1200s. And then that tradition continued. So a lot of the buildings that are in Óbidos have been commissioned by a queen. And so there's just really beautiful attention to details in the architecture, and it's really colorful. And it's just a spectacular place to just walk around and explore and kind of experience like how charmful that Portuguese architecture can be. And then the other nice thing is that along the castle walls, there are hiking trails that overlook all of the cherry orchards and the local farms. And you can view sunset and sunrise from these castle walls. And it's absolutely spectacular. Some of the best sunrises I've seen have been there. Óbidos has a valley that surrounds it. Excuse me. So for a sunrise, you see the fog rise from the valley with this beautiful sun coming over the mountains. It's extremely picturesque. The whole entire village is just extremely picturesque. And it's just a really special place. So it's great to just walk around, and it's also fantastic to watch a sunrise or a sunset from. But another thing that Óbidos is very well known for is a sour cherry liqueur. known as ginja or ginginha, depending on who you're talking to. You can find ginginha anywhere, but in Obidos, there's a really distinct way of making it. So the cherries are picked at the orchards that surround the castle walls, and then they macerate for at least 1 year before they're used for this alcohol. And you can find little stalls that are selling it all over. So it looks like a little shot, but it's supposed to be sipped. Also, I learned that I made that mistake the first time. And you can sometimes get it in like little chocolate cups, and there's little windows that you can walk right up to and you can order. However, again, if you want a really authentic Portuguese experience, then I would suggest going to this particular store. It's called Loja do Americos, which is Americos store translated. And it looks like your typical Portuguese convenience store. There's newspapers, there's tobacco, there's candy. But then you tell the guy at the counter that you wanna buy ginginha, and he'll open this side door, this like hidden back door. And he takes you to like this little bar room full of this like beautiful wooden furniture that he's cut from his own backyard and hand stained himself. And then he'll just pour you cups of ginginha and you're just drinking it. And he's telling you about his son that moved to San Francisco, his uncle that's in the hospital. And it's just a really great way to connect with locals. And, you know, like I said, Portuguese people are naturally so kind and so willing to give. And so to just have those moments where you can experience that is really great. And so if you go to Obidos and you do want to try ginginha, then Loja do Americo is where you absolutely have to do it. So then we're going to step right from Obidos into Nazaré. So we're going to pop right back onto the coast because Nazaré is becoming extremely popular right now and extremely famous all over the world because of surfing. Again, like I said, surfing is really taking shape in Portugal. It's becoming a huge destination for people that are trying to surf. And Nazaré is the king of big wave season. So big wave season here in Portugal is from October to March. And Nazaré, let me start by saying this. So when I was a kid growing up with my grandmother, Nazaré for me was always, how should I put this? Nazaré was always where the grieving widows would cry on the beach in the old movies in their black clothing because their fisherman husband just died in the treacherous waves. And they're like, so growing up as a kid, I just remember these black and white movies of like these Portuguese women wailing about their husbands. And that was always my impression of Nazaré as a kid. And then I got older, and now because of this rare undersea geography, there's a deep sea canyon that does create these massive waves. So we're talking waves that are reaching, say, 100 feet up to 30 meters. And so what used to be a nightmare for, you know, these skilled Portuguese fishermen have now become a playground for big wave surfers. And you have like Red Bull competitions there, major surf competitions there every single year. Huge names in the surfing game come every single season to come surf those giant waves. And when I tell you they're giant, they are massive. I personally had never seen anything that size. And I went on a day that it was maybe it was like 50 feet, like it wasn't massive, but it was still really high. And just to imagine double that, and then you have a tiny surfer surfing through it, it's absolutely incredible. And I did include this hyperlink here for anyone who is looking at the presentation after the fact. So this hyperlink will take you to a video created by Red Bull of different surfers surfing at Nazaré. And you can see, you know, just the magnitude of the waves and the skill that takes to surf these massive waves. And so Nezida cannot be missed. Even if, you know, you're not huge into surfing, you've never surfed at all, just to come and see the waves is just totally worth a visit. Absolutely. All right, guys. And then we are going to go ahead and pop into Leiria. So Leiria is also inland, and it's a really great Portuguese city without the tourist. So it's super local. You're really not going to see a lot of people visiting from other places. It's a small city. It's most known for this really beautiful castle it has on the hill that overlooks the valley and the city. And it's also known as a huge university town. And so the beautiful thing about Leiria is that the city center offers traditional architecture. You know, you have your winding alleyways, you have your beautiful white buildings with orange roofs. All of these streets are filled with restaurants and cafes. And the best thing is that because it's a university town, they're all being served at a fraction of the cost because they're catering to broke students. So you get to benefit from that. If you want to enjoy a beer at a cafe, it's going to cost you less than €1. And it's just really, it's a really nice place to visit if you want to explore like a small Portuguese city and see some great Portuguese architecture, but not have so many tourists around you while you're doing it. And the city also has some fantastic displays of street art. We're talking giant murals that take up the entire facades of buildings. And what's nice is that some of these murals are dedicated to actual past residents or people that live in the community. So it's also nice to see like this beautiful homage to the people that live in this city and to see so much pride. And then the last place that we're going to be talking about is Coimbra. Excuse me. So Coimbra, first off, is Portugal's former capital, and it's definitely known as like it's known for its intellectual nature because it is such a university town. And so it's also joked about. There's often a lot of jokes made about like the intellectual nature of Coimbra and how everyone is very straight and proper, which isn't the case, but that's just, you know, the general reputation that they have. But all over the city, you'll see students wearing their traditional university robes. And these are dark black robes with capes. And these uniforms actually gave direct inspiration for the Hogwarts students in the Harry Potter series. So if there's any Harry Potter fans, J.K. Rowling pulled a bunch of different inspiration from Portugal. And when you see the students walking in their robes or when they're playing their instruments, the traditional songs on the streets in their robes, you can absolutely see where that inspiration came from. So it's a fun little tidbit for the region. And then the beautiful thing about Coimbra you'll see is it's up on a hill and it's built upwards. So I tell people that when they come to just get lost in these streets, like just walk up and down these steep alleyways, huffing and puffing the entire time and get lost, because all of these streets offer such beautiful views and so many different things. And so to kind of go into it without a plan is the best way to see the city. And then the last insider tip that I'm going to offer is another one that I hold very near and dear to my heart. And that is a really fantastic fado bar. So fado music is very popular. People come to Portugal, they always want to hear fado music. What it is you'll oftentimes have a singer who is singing their deepest, darkest sorrows, and you have a guitar player that plays alongside them. And so it's a very mournful style of music, but it's also very captivating and touching and almost hypnotic. And so my personal favorite fado bar is located in Coimbra. I always mess up the name. It's Delencia. I always mess it up, but I wrote it down. I wrote it down so you guys can look it up too. But this place will be empty until after 10 o'clock. Do not go before 10 o'clock because you will be the only person there. It's this small little basement bar with wooden stools. And once 10 o'clock hits, locals start filling up those stools. And then you'll have one guitar player in the corner drinking a glass of wine and playing music and singing. And all of these old Portuguese men are singing these songs that they grew up with. And it's just a really special experience. And a lot of times with fado shows, it's like you'll just be brought into a room and then there's a stage, but like this is the way that like people, like Portuguese people truly experience fado music, is like in the basement bar with all of your friends, everyone's singing the song and everyone's just drinking late into the night. And so if you want that experience, that authentic fado experience, then this bar is where you have to go. And so that's all of the fun places that we're going to on this presentation. Now it's my little outro where I thank you guys for joining me. And I thank you guys for having this little fun virtual trip with me and hopefully learning about some new spots in Portugal that you can visit. And I especially want to thank Leah and Erica and everyone at the Nomadic Network for asking me to come and speak about this speak about this country, because it really is so incredible. And if you do get the chance to visit after all of this, I really hope you do, because I don't think I'm going to leave ever. I came with an intention to stay 3 months and now I'm here for a year with no intention to leave. But if you do want to follow along on my travels, on my adventures, on my journey, having moved out here, you can find my travel blog here, which is Voyaging Vagabond. And then these are all of my socials here. Again, if you're looking at this presentation at home after this, this particular event, all of these are clickable. And if you click them, it'll take you right to the page. So again, thank you guys so much. And now I think we're gonna get into the question portion. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Okay.
Oh, that was so dreamy, Chantel.
Was it?
I think we were all planning a trip in the chat, like while you were explaining it to us.
Perfect.
I have a quick question.
So bad. I wanted to look, I knew it would pop up and I was like, man, I hope they're enjoying this.
It's a good one. It's a good one. Actually, that brings me makes a good point. If you guys want to save the chat down, there's 3 dots in the bottom right hand of the screen. You can hit save chat and it saves it to your computer. So if there were tips here that you missed, you can go ahead and save the chat down. Chantel, did you have the map that you showed at the beginning of the presentation? Did you have the cities marked?
I did. Yeah, I did.
Do you mind throwing that back up for just another minute? I'm like anyone else here obsessed with maps, like as we're all travelers. I was trying to picture like, okay, how can I plan my road trip as you're talking about the cities? So if you want to throw that back up and let everyone, you know, drool over it for a second.
Yeah, totally. It's so funny you say that, because when I initially made this presentation, I did not include a map. Hold on. Oh, let's see. Hold on.
I mean, the photos themselves were.
Let me just pull that up.
Incredible.
Here we go. Yeah, I initially, why isn't that coming up? Hold on, Leah, one sec. I'm gonna.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, so when I initially made the presentation, I didn't include a map. And as I was going through it, I also love maps and very much so enjoy looking at maps. And so I was like, it would be really helpful if I had a map right now.
Yes. Oh, they're the best. I just like love looking at them. If you can't pull it up, that's okay. Whenever you can, just throw it up on the screen. So yeah, totally, I'm sure people will love that. So I'm going to lead with this question then. Are there differences in food between the regions, say like the north and the south of Portugal?
Yeah, absolutely. You'll find a lot of, the thing is that Portuguese food, it comes down to like a lot of staples, and a lot of those staples are like recipes that have been tried and true for like generations. And so what'll happen is like, you'll see a lot of those traditional meals, but then how the region cooks it is different. So like there'll be like slight variations within those meals, depending on like whether if you're in the north or in the south or like inland, like it really makes a difference. And then certain regions will have like things that they're known for. So like Porto is known for their francesinha. Obidos is known for the cherry liqueur and different things like that.
Ooh. Okay, that makes sense. Is spicy a thing in Portugal?
It really depends on who you're talking to. Like I have friends that like grew up in like the Bay Area of California and they're like, the food isn't spicy enough for me here.
Californians are a different breed sometimes. Like,
like even like I have a friend in Texas and she was like, girl, I grew up on Tex-Mex. Like none of the food is spicy enough for me here. So it really depends. Like I personally think it's spicy, but I don't know if I just can't handle it.
Right. Oh, I'm sure it's so incredibly flavorful though. I love how you also led with the food slides because
I mean,
that's what we all came here to learn about anyway.
I was just going to say that, like, give the people what they want.
Yeah. Right. You read the room before we even got in. Look at that. Love it.
Totally.
So two more food questions then. Like Erica wanted to know what tomato beer sauce was. Sarah wanted to know what vegetarian options there are.
Yeah. So I actually have, let me get into the vegetarian because I think that's really important. So I actually have a ton of friends right now who are vegetarian or vegan. But the produce here is incredible. So you can always find a vegetarian meal. And then the culinary scene, not so much in like small little villages, but for instance, like in Lisbon and Porto, you can find countless vegetarian and vegan restaurants. Like there's definitely a lot of options. Even the restaurants here, like a lot of them will have vegetarian or vegan options. So I know looking at the Portuguese, excuse me, the Portuguese cuisine, you're just like, oh, it's seafood and meat. But there's a lot of different vegetarian and vegan options for you here. I assure you.
Perfect. Yeah. And I can imagine in some of the like the bigger cities as well, just a mixing of cultures and whatnot, and infusing that into Portuguese cuisine as well.
And then to answer Erica's question, so a tomato beer sauce. So it's a lot of times beer is used for a lot of different sauces here as kind of like a base. So like even like a lot of steak dishes will have like a mustard and beer sauce where they just like put some beer in a pan and then they add something else to it and then they call that a sauce. But for the francesinha, it's beer and then like some like pureed tomato and then you mix it together. I don't know the specifics because no one will ever give you their recipe. But this is just based off of the recipes that I've seen online. But it's basically a mix of the two.
Okay.
And then Leah, I have that map up if you want to see it too.
Oh yes, please do.
All right, let me pull this up for you, my dear. Let's see if that works. Okay, you see this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, so let me bring you to the map portion. So what we did was we started down here. This here is Sesiembra. And then we popped over to Ericeira. And then from Ericeira, we went to Peniche. And then Berlengas, Obidos, Nazaré, Leiria, and Coimbra right up here.
Oh
and
my gosh.
This is just like the middle portion of Portugal.
Yep.
I really wanted to like include some places in the north because I know we were kind of like avoiding the south since Algarve is an area that's more frequented. But it was tough to kind of do in a half hour, but like I figured this was like a nice, if anybody wanted to do like a little road trip, like this is a great route for them.
I literally was just going to say, you guys, that's it. There's your like 3-week road trip right there. So take Honestly. A screenshot or sign up at voyagingvagabonds.com for Chantel's newsletter and you'll get this presentation. I know we have those links dropped in the chat, but there, Erica just dropped it again. So that is so cool. That's like perfect. I was literally going to ask him like, okay, I know some people were asking about places in the south, you know, more touristy places, but I know we wanted to explore outside of those. So
Yeah, and I
these
mean,
are
like,
hidden gems.
yeah, like, and don't get me wrong, like Algarve is beautiful. Like the beaches out there are absolutely stunning. They are incredible. However, for me, it just doesn't feel like authentic Portugal because it is so touristy.
Mhm.
It just feels like your old British grandparents go for holiday, kind of, if that makes sense. It definitely has that vibe to it. It's stunning and it's a beautiful area and it is worth visiting. But if you're looking for like authentic Portugal, then like that's certainly not the region you're gonna find
Yeah.
it, at least not in those major cities that people are going to.
Yep. Yep. All right. Well, thank you for those other recommendations. I know Jess wanted to know if you actually grew up speaking Portuguese or how you learned.
So I did not grow up speaking Portuguese. My parents came here when they were teenagers, and the sad reality is that they came to America and everyone made fun of them for being an immigrant. And so they assimilated to the culture and learned English. And so they didn't want us as kids to go through those same experiences. So we always spoke English at home. My parents would speak English to me unless they needed me to do something. So if they needed me to like turn off the light or like give them the remote, like that, those things I could say in Portuguese. So like parent commands I knew
Yeah.
really well. But I mean, I also grew up surrounded by Portuguese immigrants. So I was always hearing it. So like I have a very natural ear for it. And, you know, I could like speak enough to be polite. And I had the basics. But then once I came here, I just like made a point to learn as much as I could. So for the past year, I've been practicing every day. Even like I'll go to places where like I know they can speak English to me, but I'll just speak Portuguese to them just to practice for myself. I actually went to a cafe the other day and I was speaking Portuguese to the guy and we had a conversation and then he asked me a question, but he said it to me in English real quick. And I almost went to answer him in English and then he remembered and he like went to speak back to me in Portuguese and I was like, okay, who's fluent?
I
Just
love that.
kidding.
That's so great. Good for you. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's nothing that beats immersion. So you being there and better position. So,
Yeah.
um, all right. So Ed wants to know what the climate is like. He heard it's a lot like California, actually.
Yeah. This is coming from Ed.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ed, here's the thing. It all depends on where you are. So if you're gonna go south, it's gonna usually always be warm. Like if you want like solid warm weather, not as much rain, then you go south. If you go up north, it's kind of like Seattle. So once the summer's over, it's a lot of rain, it's a lot of gray, it's chilly. And then you get to the middle and it's like perfect California weather where it's like warm, like although November in particular has been really wet. So we've been getting nonstop rain, which is very rare for Lisbon, but it's been like constant rain. So it's been a really wet season. In Peniche where I was, it's always wet. So like no matter what time of the year it is, you're always getting rain. Like you always have to worry about like all of the mold from like the sea ocean, like getting onto your things. Like it's just like constant humidity, which is kind of awful, but great at the same time because you're right next to the beach. So yeah, in terms of weather, it's always fantastic weather, but the weather is better or worse depending on where you are in the country.
Right. I can imagine that. So multi-climate zone.
Yeah.
It's okay. It doesn't matter. We're all going to visit anyway. Put on a little rain jacket.
December of last
so
year,
off the top of your head, let's see.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say,
No,
like,
I was just going to move on to the next question.
December of last year, I was still in shorts and a tank top. So like,
no way.
Yeah, but now I've been here too long and I'm spoiled because I'm like, oh, it's so cold now. It's like I come from Rhode Island, like where we get blizzards, and now I'm like, it's like 58 degrees. I'm like, oh, it's so cold.
Like, oh, gotta put on my parka.
My family's gonna be like laughing at me as they're like shoveling snow in their driveway.
Yeah. They're like, get out of here with your thin blood. I get
Honestly.
it. So, off the top of your head, really quickly, Macy asks, what are some must-see places in northern Portugal? Like, if you just want to just drop the names of cities.
So in northern Portugal, 100% Porto, which a lot of people do go to, which makes me really happy to hear. But I personally love Porto because like I like to use this comparison. If you look at Lisbon as Manhattan, Porto is Brooklyn. And so it's got like this really interesting vibe to the city where like the arts are celebrated and you know you can always find music in the city and the artists are celebrated. There's always a play like there's always some kind of thing within the theater to go see. Like there's just like a really big celebration of the arts there, so I personally love Porto for that reason. And then Aveiro is considered the Venice of Portugal. It has one canal.
If you have a canal, you're like Venice.
Yep. But it's a really nice place, and they have like these really long gondola style boats. There's a specific name, but it's escaping me right now. If anybody knows it, drop it in the comments. But yeah, Aveiro is really pretty to see, and then also Braga and Tomar. Tomar is like a little bit kind of near where we were exploring, but it's also a nice city that's worth checking out if you do have the opportunity. So I would say Porto, Aveiro, Braga, and Tomar.
Oh, amazing. Thank you. Now we're all going to be researching all day instead of whatever work we have.
That's to me. That sounds way better.
It does. It does. All right. So I think, who was it? Some great questions about, Lisa had a question about moving to the Lisbon area. I believe you're in Lisbon, right?
Yeah. So I've actually been living on and off in Lisbon. I what I've been doing is like I'll live in Lisbon for a month and then I go visit some friends, or like I'll go somewhere else for weeks and then I come back. So I've lived in Lisbon on and off for like just over 3 months, almost 4 months now. Oh, someone wrote boats are called Moliceiro. Am I saying that right, Katarina? I don't know. But okay, now we know the name for the boats in Aveiro. So shout out, appreciate you. But yeah, so I was hopping around Portugal for a long time because I wasn't sure where I wanted to end up. I knew I wanted to be in Portugal, but I really didn't know where I wanted to kind of like build my roots. And Lisbon was finally it. I finally made the pull this past month and decided to live here for a little bit longer. And personally, I just adore it as a city. It's really easy to get anywhere from here. It offers pretty much everything. And if it doesn't offer it in the city, I can take a boat, a ferry, a car, or a train, or a bus to get there. So I really like having all of that accessibility to all of these different things. And despite the hills, it's just such a beautiful city, and it just shines, and the sunsets look like cotton candy. And during golden hour, the entire city is golden and it just gleams, and I can't get enough of it. I really love it here.
It
Oh,
really
and
is like
the rent
a
is
real
super
life fairy
cheap.
tale. Oh,
Rent
yeah.
super cheap. If you're coming from America, it's super cheap. And the cost of living is incredibly cheap as well. I mentioned it with the food, but a lot of the things that you'll find in the grocery store are made regionally. So since they're not exporting a lot of, they're not importing a lot of things, and it's all regional, it's super cheap. Like my mom will call me and just be like, tell me how much butter costs out there. How much is milk out there? Please just tell me. And I'm like, you really don't want to know.
Yeah, you're like, maybe I shouldn't. Do you want me to lie to you?
Yeah, honestly.
Okay, so I take it you don't have a car in the city then. You just use
Nope,
public transport?
I haven't driven a car since December of last year. I don't look forward to having to ever drive a car again. But yeah, like if you don't have a car, like there's a bus, a train, public transportation can take you anywhere out here.
Oh, lovely. That's like most of Europe, which is, amazing. And then what about neighborhoods? Like what neighborhood do you live in and what others would you recommend? What are some good ones for people who are trying to settle in Lisbon?
Yeah, so the nice thing is since I've like been popping to all of these different spots, I've gotten to explore a few different neighborhoods. So like I'm in Santa Catarina right now, which I really love. I also was near like Intendente, which I really like too. It's another really great spot. I also really like Principal Real, which is really cool. Each of these spots, like for me, like I need somewhere that like offers some really cute cafes I can pop into, a park nearby so I can go read if I want to, and like also be somewhat close and central to all of the different public transportation, and preferably like not near massive hills, because like some of the hills here, um, so those neighborhoods definitely tick all of those boxes for me. Although I do have to go up a massive hill to get to my apartment, which I didn't realize prior to that. But I just tell myself I'm working out the glutes. So like all works
Yes.
out. Like, every
Yes.
time I'm like carrying groceries and I hate my life and I'm like, why did I buy so much at the grocery store? I'm like, all right, it's all in the glutes. It's all in the glutes. It's gonna be okay.
It's true. It's true. You're getting those flights in, you're getting those steps in, you know, you're getting that incline in, you're good.
Totally.
So Sue and Laura had some of the same questions, you know, best areas for expats to settle. Laura wants to know about the Cascade, and I'll I can't, I'm so sorry. I can't do
No,
a
it's
Portuguese
okay.
accent for the life of me. And then Algarve, which I always thought was Algarve, but I'm pronouncing it incorrectly. So, you know, she's hearing that these are the big expat places. What are your thoughts on these?
Yeah, so Cascais is really cool. It's a cool little up and coming city. I've always known it as a beach destination, but again, like that's just because I have a different perception since I've been coming as a kid, and like a lot of these places are transforming for like surfers and expats. So like how I know these areas is kind of changing. And so Cascais does have a lot of expats. Lisbon has a ton of expats. Porto has a ton of expats. The nice thing is that like in the big cities like Porto and Lisbon, there's also like co-living spaces for people who are expats and looking for like short-term rentals. So if that's something like you're looking for a co-working space, but also looking for a co-living space, like there's a ton of options here in the city. It really is an expat stream out here. The Wi-Fi is god awful though. That is the only thing. Like one of my clients has me downloading like high quality videos right now, and it's like painful how long a 45-second video takes
Oof,
sometimes. So
you're
definitely keep
like
that in mind.
8 hours or so.
Honestly, you laugh, but that's reality.
Oh, sorry.
But no, like but like co-working spaces are inexpensive. They always have really good
Oh,
Wi-Fi.
so good.
A lot of the cafes will also have really strong Wi-Fi. Mobile hotspots are super cheap out here if that's an option. So like there's
Right.
definitely a ton of different options out here. It's a really nice place if you are considering for expats.
Yeah, I bet. And actually, that's a great segue into our next question, because a lot of the attendees in the chat want to know, like Leah and Mia, do you know anything about like the digital nomad freelancer visa? I know, you know, you're talking about Wi-Fi strength. That's all great. Lots of co-living, co-working, but beyond that, like getting in the country, staying in the country, working there, etc.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. Unfortunately, I didn't have to apply for that digital nomad visa. So I'm lucky enough to have citizenship here, and that's why I'm able to stay long term. Um, and so I'm not entirely sure how the visas are, but I know I do have some friends that have applied for them and they have been living out here, working remotely with companies that are in the States. So the options are out there. It might just take a little bit of research. Unfortunately, I don't have that answer. I really wish I did. But I'm sure if you go online, you'll be able to find something.
All right. Well, why don't we just all get dual citizenship like you, and then we won't have to ask these questions, right?
Yeah, let's all just
No.
get married.
To each other and head over there. All right. Well, I think there's some great options to check out visas and whatnot in the chat, so you guys can go there. I just want to do two more questions. Chantel, and thank you everyone else for staying on a few minutes after. I know we're so enamored by Portugal. So Katrina had a question about let's see, The name of the archipelago linked by trails and bridges and Peniche. I can't remember how you pronounce it. I'm
Yep,
sorry.
yep. You said it perfectly. It's Peniche.
Okay.
So that's called Papoa. It's Papoa, Papoa, and it's my favorite place here in Portugal. It's incredible. There's nobody there ever, and it's so beautiful.
All right. Awesome. Yeah, Katrina's like, thank you. And then the last question, I thought this was a great question. Kim wants to know, do you have any recommendations or have you heard of any areas of Portugal that are great for like long bike rides or bike tours?
Oh yeah. So I don't know specifics, but I have a friend of mine who biked down the entire coast. Yeah. So there's definitely options. I mean, I'm not like a huge physical activity type of gal. So like I'm not doing long-term biking trips. So I don't have those specifics, but I know that they are in Portugal. And a lot of them are, you can either go inland and bike through the forest, or you can go along the coast. Those options are there.
Awesome. That's good to know. Yeah. And then I mean, I actually was thinking of doing
The Camino.
Camino in Portugal. So
Yeah.
I'll hit you up on your Instagram at Voyaging Vagabond for
Yep.
Camino questions. So if anyone else has the same interest in doing the Portuguese Camino, definitely connect with
Yes.
definitely connect with Chantel. We dropped a few links in the chat on where to reach her. Thank you so much for this incredible presentation. People are still here because they just want to move there tomorrow. And if you guys weren't able to drop your email in the chat, you can visit Chantel's website, voyagingvagabond.com. Did I get that correct? Yes.
You did.
I believe so. Yep. Erica's dropped it in the chat a few times. Remember, you guys can save the chat down if you want. This was amazing.
This was incredible.
And
honestly, thank you so much. I had such a fun time.
we could have you talking all day. I'm not going to lie. Oh, there you go. Erica dropped all of the ways to connect with Chantel in the chat. Like we said, you can get the exact presentation by signing up for her newsletter. I'm sure she has more incredible, great content, especially she's, living in Portugal. We can just all live vicariously through her.
Yeah, I would love that. Please virtually join on. The more the merrier.
Yes. I'm going to pop up a little outro. Chantel, thanks again. So everyone, you're at a Nomadic Network event today, but you can visit the site for all of our future events. Today we have a Washington, D.C. travel happy hour. Next week we have some hut-to-hut treks around the world. How a blogger started sustainable women's clothing line. We have a California happy hour. And then Matt's going to come back on in the middle of the month and maybe tell us, what 2021 is going to bring. Like we mentioned before, Patreon community member, if you're looking for a way to support this community, support Nomadic Matt so we can keep getting that great content, or if you're finding value, just know that there is more for you out there. You can, join Patreon, get these event replays, watch them as many times as you want, personal stories, input on the content we put out, live Q&As, free signed books, free guides, and just go to patreon.com/Nomadic Matt to find out more.
Yay.
And, this would be nothing without the audience, without you guys. Chantel, you were so amazing. Thank you for coming back for us. It wouldn't be the same if it was just the three of us, me, Erica, and Chantel talking. So everyone else, thank you for being here and your input, your questions, your curiosity. And Chantel, for all of your knowledge. We appreciate it. And I hope you get to connect with everyone on this beautiful country.
Yes, I hope so too. Thank you again for having me. It was such a pleasure.
Of course, we loved it. Everyone else loved it. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and have a great week. We